about that. That's
Yeah.
absolutely. And talking of the Polaris program, Scott, would you like to give us a sort of a brief overview of what the Polaris Dawn mission is all about, for those that don't know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So our introduction, more or less, to the SpaceX mission started with Inspiration 4. And Inspiration 4 was a proof of concept, more or less, to open up the doors to humanity for space travel. It was the first all-civilian mission to space. We randomly selected the crew with Jared at the helm as the commander. And they spent 3 days in orbit, and we partnered with St. Jude, and that raised over $250 million.
Wow.
Again, we got to continue to work on some of the challenges we face here on Earth, but we can't ignore our desire for curiosity with space exploration. So based on that relationship and partnership we built with SpaceX, it started a conversation about kind of the next phase. What can we do to contribute with our desire to kind of move that needle and get back to the lunar surface and eventually Mars and beyond? So in that collaboration, we came up with the Polaris program. A very loose analogy is the Gemini project. When you got Mercury, initial space flight, and you got the Apollo program, where we went to the moon. In between there, you got Gemini, and their objective was to accomplish some firsts. The first docking, the first EVA, multi-crew, longer durations. Mm-hmm. So in a similar fashion, on a very, very smaller level, the Polaris program is helping to identify some of these challenges that we face with regard to going back to the lunar surface and Mars. So as a developmental program, we came up with a 3-mission profile, the first one being Polaris Dawn. And I'll talk about the objectives here in a second, but we're working on the profile of the second one. And then, as you just mentioned, the third mission will be the first crewed mission of Starship, which Jared will command. But before we get there, we gotta complete Polaris Dawn, and we've set 4 primary objectives. The first being the first commercial EVA, and this will be the first time that 4 astronauts at one time have participated in an EVA. This involves the development of a new suit, EVA suit. They've started off utilizing the IVA suit as a baseline, and then continue to develop that suit to make it a full-up EVA suit with increased mobility, improved thermals, as well as some technology improvements that give us a HUD and some other things to be disclosed once we get into space. The second objective is to continue to push the envelope and go further out. So the furthest anyone's ever been with Earth orbit is Gemini 11 back in 1966. Pete Conrad and Dick Gordon reached an apogee of just shy of 1,400 kilometers, with the ISS sitting right around 400. Just to put it in perspective, that's 3x that. So we're looking to set an apogee of right around 1,400 kilometers. That will put us in the lower portions of the Van Allen belt for a couple orbits to accomplish some of the science and research that we've tasked ourselves to accomplish. And our third objective is to test Starlink from space for the very first time. So you talk about HD, this program's in HD. Hopefully we can communicate in similar fashion with laser-based communication, which is, again, critical for us to go, longer duration.
Yeah, I was going to say that's going to be really important in the future, isn't it? It really is.
And we got a really cool way to present this. Again, something I can't really talk about at this point, right. But it's going to be hopefully this world stage that we'll be able to broadcast from. And then our fourth objective is to do a lot of science and research. Again, identifying some of those challenges, obstacles, and hurdles that will help us solve these, allow us to go on these longer duration space missions. So we've identified like intracranial pressure is something we need to solve. That pressure within the cerebral fluid that causes some vision acuity issues, sometimes blindness. We got to figure out more. So we've got a handful, half dozen different experiments that will address that. Ultrasound. Obviously, there's big concerns with the longer you stay up there, 8 to 9 months to get to Mars. Any medical triage that you got to accomplish, we need to figure out some of those challenges. So that's, again, our focus for this particular mission. Because
at the moment, we don't have the technology to develop rotating spacecraft big enough to generate any sort of reasonable artificial gravity, do we? So solving these medical problems is paramount for long-term space missions.
As part of that research, do I understand you're going to have some implants put into the spinal fluid to measure the pressures?
So yes, there was a surgery involved. Unfortunately, the equipment that was selected for this did not work out as expected. Okay. Therefore, I had to have the device removed, and we will look to identify that particular experiment on a future mission.
Right.
Okay, then. Yeah, I didn't understand that. You also talked about the EVA, the spacewalk. Did I understand, or did I hear somewhere that there could be 2 of you actually outside the spacecraft at any one time, or did I mishear?
So that's one of the big challenges is the consumables that we have available on the capsule. Unlike the ISS, where they have individual modules to be able to do all the pre-breathes and just the sheer volume of the ISS relative to the Dragon capsule, we're limited to 2 individuals participating in the EVA. By definition, we're all involved in the fact that once we bring it down to vacuum, open the capsule, it's literally in the simulator, the hatch is right there. But based on the limited oxygen, nitrogen, nitrox that we have available, it's going to be limited to 2 individuals.
That's going to be.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, it's this is such an innovative mission, and it really does recall the glory days of Mercury and Gemini and all those wonderful missions. And I'm old enough that I remember Mercury and Gemini splashdowns on the television, which was I remember them very clearly, and then Apollo, of course. And it's nice to have some of that spirit back, of pure innovation and trying things that never been tried before.
Well, I appreciate that comparison, and we're truly standing on the shoulders of these pioneers.
Absolutely,
and we certainly wouldn't be able to be doing Polaris Dawn without the accomplishments of what NASA does on a daily basis. So we're very fortunate to have the history that we do.
Sure, I watched the film First Man, which I thought was absolutely excellent. I watched it a few times actually, and that really did bring home to you, apart from anything else, just how dangerous it was and how brave those astronaut pioneers were, and how unflappable Neil Armstrong was. He was, a rare breed, really. The right stuff. He was absolutely amazing.
Hey, Scott,
so as a pilot,
you would be skirting through the radiation belts, Van Allen belts?
That is correct. With an apogee of 1,400 kilometers, we'll be in the very, very lower portions. Our orbit is highly elliptical. So right now we're targeting 1,400 by 190. So it'd be short durations in the Van Allen belt.
And are there any special concerns about particle radiation?
That's one of the big things that we want to be testing, and based on the analysis that SpaceX has done and continues to do, they're minimizing our exposure to those levels. There's concerns of systems, all the computer systems, but there's so much redundancy built into their equipment that it's not a big concern, and obviously to the human body. But it's such low levels of exposure. we're really no concern. But based on our ability to get up there, we'll be able to do some of the science and research that we've tasked ourselves to accomplish.
Great. May I just take this opportunity to welcome Kareem and Rachel, who've snuck in through the back door while we've been talking. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Kareem, would you like to introduce yourself? And because I think one of your students had a couple of questions for Scott.
He does, but I might go first because we're talking about Van Allen radiation belts. Scott's actually, I guess you're a neighbor if you go back forth to New Hampshire still a bit. I'm in Montreal, so I'm just up the road from you.
Oh, very nice.
I'm an educator here at one of the CEGEPs, so it's kind of the cross between the last year of high school, first year of university. So my students are astronomy students who have a passion for or an interest in the night sky. So one of them he's been following a lot of what Polaris Dawn has been planning and a lot of what the private ventures are and the raising of money for the cancer research. And so he sent a couple of questions. But before I jump into those, I'm wondering with the Van Allen radiation belt passes, what type of instrumentation do you have with you to investigate the magnetism of the particles, the abundance of different solar and cosmic radiation?
That's a great question. We continue to do all our science and research preparation. So we haven't got to the devices that we're actually going to utilize. But I know we've partnered with PPNL laboratory up in Seattle, Portland area, I believe up in the Northwest, that are experts, obviously, in radiation. And they have provided us with certain devices to measure those levels. I believe we have like 3 different devices, but in the coming months, we will be, as we get closer to the launch date, we will be familiarizing ourselves with these devices to make those measurements. But I'm not exactly sure on the specifics of what it is.
No worries. Thanks, Kit. And so Lucas Loreno Perez, one of my students, he was asking, based on the elliptical orbit and the radius that you're going out to, which is a fairly substantial orbit, it's the best we've gotten to since the Apollo missions and the Gemini missions. Has any specific precaution been taken for the aircraft design to deal with the friction on reentry? Because you'll be going at a higher velocity for reentry than we're used to for these types of crafts.
That's actually a great question, and it was truly a concern once we did come up with the concept of trying to continue to push this envelope and go to a higher apogee. So based on the profile that we've developed, we will do a burn to bring down that apogee from 1400 to something a little more comfortable for reentry, somewhere right around 750-ish kilometers. And that's where we will perform the EVA itself and the remainder of our science and research. So that is more familiar with the reentry profile. And that's one way to solve it. But yes, it is a big concern with any consideration for.
That's fantastic with stages. Yeah, Daz.
Yeah, just to following on from that, Scott. Will you do like the Orion does, do the sort of like the banks where you enter the atmosphere and then climb back up again to mitigate some of the heating on the heat shield?
I don't believe that is part of our profile. I can't address any more of the specifics. I'm not sure how much I can disclose other than the actual apogee and perigee.
So you just got to come in screaming.
By the way,
just checklist, put out the arms, try to slow down as much as possible.
Throw out the anchor.
I don't want to go to any more questions till Rachel gets a chance to say hi.
By the way, Kareem, your volume is very low.
I'll change that again like last time. Give me a moment.
Yeah, okay. It's just that when you said the name of your student who asked the question, we lost your volume. So perhaps you might like to restate the name of your student who asked that question.
Lucas Loreno Perez.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we can just refer to him as Lucas. He's fantastic. He's an avid amateur astronomer, already taken out telescopes a few times. So,
if I may, I'm so impressed with this generation. We just got back from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. We visited their space lab last weekend, and they're building a camera that we're going to utilize for the EVA itself. And the things that they are working on, I could have never dreamed to be involved with back in our day in the university. So I'm quite impressed with this generation, and we have so much to look forward to.
Definitely.
Excellent. Well, viewers, if you have any more questions for Scott, please do put them in the chat. Now's your chance. And it's lovely to have you with us, Kareem and Rachel. Rachel, how's Isaac?
He's a little noisy. That's why I keep muting it next door. But he's watching. He's watching next door with his dad.
Oh, fantastic. Lovely photographs of him recently, Rachel.
Jack Martin asked an interesting question in the chat, following up on the biosensors discussion earlier. Are there any concerns about a stroke? About what would happen if something like that occurred while you were on a 5-day mission?
Absolutely. Anything that can happen here on Earth, I guess other than anything that would be induced by gravity, could possibly happen in space. So that's part of the brainstorming process when we came up with the science and research based on all the partnerships, like 25 different institutions, universities, nonprofits. We had set pillars or objectives for what we wanted to accomplish, and we did a request for proposal, and a lot of these came back, and they were to address any challenges that we could face, and stroke is a perfectly good one. CPR, that's something else we've discussed, and we're going to try to figure out, because the simplest task in microgravity 0G is a lot more challenging than when you got gravity to help you. We also have this, one of the experiments involves this more or less ambulatory EMT type box that can take all the vitals you could ever imagine in an instant, based on hooking up some leads and cuffs. And so the idea is this all-in-one, and I'm not doing it justice explaining it, but it allows us to be able to take all these vitals and downlink them to the experts, the doctors, if you don't have one on board, obviously. We do have a medical officer and a minute on our mission. She's being trained appropriately. But these devices and thinking through all these different scenarios will hopefully allow us to figure out solutions for when we do take these long-duration space missions.
Yeah. Steve Warbis would like to know, hi, Steve. Would you ultimately want to head to Mars yourself, Scott?
I'm getting up there in age. I'm going to contribute as much as I possibly can on this mission. And I'll leave those long duration missions to Mars for the young pups in the audience.
Yeah.
So do you envisage a follow-on mission yet, or is it too early to tell?
It's too early to tell. Our primary focus right now is Polaris Dawn, to make sure we get it on track. We've had a couple delays, and it's a developmental program in nature. Yeah. I was a developmental operational test pilot in the Air Force, always working on different weapon systems, software upgrades, hardware upgrades. Yeah. And there's always inherent delays when you find things you got to fix. Yeah. And so in the development, the creation of this EVA suit, it's amazing what they've been able to accomplish. But it takes time, and we got to hit it right. We can't afford to have any hiccups whatsoever up there in space. We'll solve it here.
SpaceX have developed those suits in an incredibly short period of time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's
relatively speaking, people are always asking us, "Oh, you're delayed again. You're delayed again. I thought you were supposed to go last year."
Yeah.
If you look at the big picture, the timeline they've been able to create and where they are right now, I would love to show you pictures and video of these suits. It's absolutely amazing what they're able to accomplish.
Yeah, it's
has there been any extra well, I can't say safety measures taken due to the fact that we are, when we're talking about radiation and things like that, with the sun being really active as it is at the moment?
Yeah, that's actually something that we've discussed throughout the development. It's something they will continue to watch. They have methods, all the smart people in mission control, they'll be able to monitor, and if there's any concerns, a lot of it has gone into the forecast and the preparatory phases of setting the launch date to ensure that we minimize that level of exposure. But once airborne, there's certain things that the vehicle can do, that mission control to accomplish to protect us and increase the level of safety.
I guess
we need you to stay safe.
You have competing radiation problems during the solar cycle, right? During solar maximum, there's more chances of CMEs and flares and so on. But during solar minimum, you're not as protected from galactic cosmic rays. So I don't know which is better, which time is better to launch.
Yeah.
Not swings and roundabouts.
Not to mention the density of the atmosphere changes, so your whole re-entry dynamics have to be adjusted depending on how active the sun is at that time. It's a lot of math. It's a lot of fun math, but it's a lot of math.
And that's where we rely on all the experts at SpaceX. Thank God they don't leave it up to me. I know how to fly a jet. That's about it.
And talking of flying, I mean, all the astronauts that we've seen flying the Dragon have said what an absolute joy it is to fly, and how comfortable it is, and what a fantastic spacecraft it is. And when we've looked at the shots from inside the capsule, just got a few touch screens and everything's, no knobs and levers and dials and all the rest of it. It looks extremely. I mean, I know it is under the hood very complex, has to be, but it looks an incredibly wonderful spacecraft to fly. I'm sure you must be looking forward to flying it.
Absolutely, and we've spent a lot of time in the simulator, which is more or less a full up capsule. As realistic as it can get. A couple of weeks ago, we were training at headquarters in Hawthorne, which is in LA, at SpaceX, and we got the opportunity to see our capsule, Resilience, in the clean room. Oh, wow. So we put on the bunny suits and went in and got a very, up close and personal look at the capsule. And it's got that, despite the fact that it's been up in space a couple times, it's still got that new car smell. But the capsule itself is very comfortable. The seats are fitted to each individual person. The suits are surprisingly comfortable as well. It's roomier than you would think, and very Gucci avionics. The computer systems. There's 3 screens, and Jared and I get to fight over those screens. He always wins, though, for some reason. He's quicker than I am.
Money talks.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Talk to the size of
me, I mean, it's I can't begin to imagine what it must be like for you as an experience. Because, for example, I might wake up one morning and think, right, what have I got to do today? Oh yeah, I've got to wander down to the shop to buy some coffee. You're going to wake up one morning and say, right, today I'm going to go into space. I mean, it's
despite growing up in the 80s with the right stuff, there was always that admiration for what astronauts were and what they were able to accomplish. I never really thought it was, something I could achieve. Aviation, I love flying fighter jets and all, but astronauts were viewed as this pinnacle, this very unique species, the unicorn, if you will. Physical, mental, emotional. Now that we get to kind of open the doors for all of humanity, and we proved that with Inspiration 4, I still wake up going, I can't believe I have this opportunity. And there are certain moments that we have in training where, experienced it a little bit during Inspiration 4, but I still didn't know I was going to have the opportunity. But just seeing, the rocket brought out and elevated on the pad a couple days prior to their launch, and watching their launch, and we're starting to have those experiences. The first time we closed the hatch as a crew and started a long sim integrated with the mission control team, it's all becoming more and more real.
Yeah, it's.
And I am.
Will there be any rituals before the flight? Do you know, or have you got any sort of like things you like to, or a good luck charm or anything you're going to be taking with you?
There are traditions, certain things they do in the suit up room prior to launch, stuff that's been around since, the Mercury days, and some things are new because SpaceX is always, they're always one-upping the world of space exploration. So as far as trinkets, our payload's fairly limited. I think we get what's referred to as a common bag. It's no bigger than a lunchbox to be able to bring little trinkets. But for me, the fact that I get to go into space is enough. I'll load that full of other things that people want to give to me to take up to space.
Yeah.
Can I?
Michael, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah. Going back to the size of Dragon, obviously it's a lot bigger than Gemini or Apollo was, but it's still a lot smaller than the volume of the ISS. You've got four astronauts in that small space. You must get on very well with each other. And how do you get on with personal hygiene and that sort of stuff in 5 days?
You had to lower the tone, didn't you, Michael?
I at least I didn't say the obvious question.
Well, that's why we do some of the training that we do. A lot of people ask us, why do you climb mountains? Why do you fly fighter jets? Why do you scuba dive? A lot of those experiences allow us the opportunity to work together and build that teamwork and understand what bugs us about each other. And you also have an opportunity to learn a lot about yourself and how you do handle those stressors. Side of a mountain, we climbed Cotopaxi down in South America, over 19,000 foot peak. Once you're up there, it takes a couple days to get up there. You can't just take a chairlift down. You got to deal with the conditions. You're cold, you're hungry, you're dehydrated. Altitude is a factor. And by the way, you haven't slept in days, and now you're in tents and you're dealing with each other, and you don't smell good. But it's at altitude or in space 5 days. From what I understand from Jared's experiences, it's tolerable.
Okay.
The conditions are pretty much ideal with temperatures, so it's not like you're sweating very much. If anything, Cyan was wearing a stocking cap most of the time, so I think she had a little bit of a chill. So we'll deal. It's these are minor sacrifices for what we get to experience.
And going back to the interior as well. When I first saw the pictures of the interior of Dragon, it just took me back to the science fiction films of the 60s and 70s with the touch screens in the capsule. It's just science fiction coming true, like everything else comes true.
Yeah, and what blew my mind was I had some free time one time, and I took my son down to the California Science Museum to see Gemini 11 capsule.
Oh yeah,
and holy cow, it's like night and day looking at their capsule and their seat, and for how long they were up there, unable to move at all. So I'm certainly not complaining about the volume that we have within the Dragon capsule.
Yeah,
there's plenty of room relative to what they experienced.
So will the capsule have the window on the front end again, like on Inspiration?
So no, we're reverting back to because that cupola was not something you could open up. So we're back to the normal hatch.
Okay.
So we can open it up to space. A little bit bigger window, I guess, going outside.
Yeah.
Bit breezy.
Since we're talking about the design of part of the capsule, I want to go back to another question that Lucas had asked. Is he was wondering about the way in which the lasers would be installed for communication with Starlink, and was there an actual orientation that was being planned so that you could be in constant communication with the Starlink fleet? Is there a bandwidth that you're expecting to be able to use in order for you to? I know you said that you can't tell us what the big event is going to be that you're going to use to showcase how well the system works. Right. Can you give us a few teasers?
So, I'll skirt the boundaries of my information. The trunk itself is being modified with a Starlink router, more or less, and it will communicate directly with the constellation. That alone is mesmerizing, to be able to align lasers with these constellations as we're traveling 17,500 miles an hour. It's still a proof of concept, so a lot has to be figured out for all these stars to align. No pun intended. But hopefully it will, and this will be a new medium for us to communicate. Right now, we're relying upon TEDRA satellites, which are a national, asset, competing resource, and all the ground-based facilities that we pass over. It truly is limiting when we start talking about these longer duration space missions in our future. And having a constellation to be able to communicate via laser-based is hopefully going to be game-changing. It's a lower latency, it's a more broadband. So hopefully we can simply, FaceTime friends and family when we're up there. We do have kind of one significant event to be able to try to prove that this can work. Hopefully it all works out, and it's going to be really, really cool. Something that will be globally broadcast. But if that works, then the floodgates open. I'm going to jump on my phone, if they let me, and start communicating as much as we possibly can. There's also other nonprofit organizations that we're going to reach down to and talk to throughout as broadcast type events.
So we can put you down as a guest from space the Monday.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, I will refer you to the SpaceX communication team to align. And
that would be cool.
Scott,
we'll just go direct to Elon. He's a buddy. You were saying about the laser technology. That reminded me that the Psyche mission, which is going out to 16 Psyche, that's going to be testing a laser system for communications and passing data. That's right. I know it's a lot further away, but the technology that's going to be a proof of concept, and the technology they're using there is absolutely fascinating. So I hope everything works out well. So
definitely.
Well, I'm almost wondering if down the road, can we foresee Starlink being used as part of the Deep Sky Network, and the new generation of probes would be able to communicate more easily with our stations here on Earth?
Well, I know NASA for a long time have had this vision of a sort of an internet of the solar system, which makes perfect sense. If you can't really do it with radio effectively, much better with lasers because of the data throughput. And we've got some brilliant times ahead of us, I think, over the next few years. It's going to be stunning. And Scott, could you give us any idea of when the launch is going to be, or was that sort of under wraps?
That is a great question. Maybe you should ask Elon. No. I kid. It was currently scheduled for the end, fourth quarter of 23. As any developmental program, I would not be surprised if it slips into early 24.
That's the nature of the beast.
But yes. But we want to get it right. We got to make sure we're fully vetted everything.
Well, Elon's favorite term is 6 to 8 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Elon time.
Elon time.
You see, the thing is, Scott, that we would like to plan our coverage of live launches. So, if you could just tell them that the Space Oddities would like to know as soon as possible, so that we can start planning.
Absolutely.
And if you can make it a reasonable time, if you can make it a reasonable time in the UK, that'd be brilliant.
Not in the middle of the night. No. So,
thankfully, we have a little more flexibility than any type of ISS mission, like Crew 7, Crew 8.
Sure.
There's not an instantaneous window. This is a fairly hefty window. So
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because you're talking about the window there. Again, going back to the Psyche mission, that is down to a second.
Oh wow!
So that's got to launch on a specific second, but they got a 20-day window to get that second that they can actually launch. It's got to be so precise to get their orbital trajectories right for everything that they've got to do to get out to 16 Psyche. So
you mean
these guys are really clever.
We got to choose the time of day that's perfect for the lighting, right, Roger? To have those awesome pictures.
Yeah. And did you attend the launch of Crew 7, Scott?
I did not. No.
Okay.
Too early in the morning for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right then, guys. Well, listen, I think we grilled Scott enough for this evening. Scott, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the show. We've got probably about half an hour left. You're welcome to stay, but we would like to thank you so much for being here. So thank you so much. The very best of luck with the mission. And can I just say, from my generation, Daz's generation, Roger, Michael, we're children of Apollo, and thank you so much for keeping that spirit alive, the true spirit of exploration.
Thanks.
And let's hope that you can make more than 250 million for St. Jude's Hospital. That would be
definitely.
We're trying. We're raising that visibility and get the word out. So I appreciate the opportunity. Unfortunately, I'm going to jump to go pick up my son.
Yeah, of course.
But thank you for the opportunity to share the details of the mission. I would love to come back if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, please.
Definitely.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back. I'll leave you in the capable hands of Michael to sort that out. So, so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.